The Black Phoenix Legacy. Written by Jhexzone. Audio by Balabolkas David. Chapter 2. Beijing. One of the things Ji Xian was looking forward to was that his best friend Little Den was still alive. Ha 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 ha. He laughed like madman possessed by an evil spirit. In the past, he wasn't able to do anything to save his friend from getting murdered. He remembered the second-rate guild, Black Rock Society, which Little Den became a vice guild leader. However, due to guild disputes and jealousy, his guildmate killed him. This time, Ji Xian swore to himself. He mustn't let that tragic incident happen again. Grinning inwardly, Ji Xian recalled the warehouse where he met his friend. It was when he turned 18 and graduated from senior middle school. He didn't attend any college, but worked in one of the department stores near his house. He was one of the warehouse attendants whose main job was to receive products from suppliers and store them into the warehouse after verifying their condition. 2 years after entering the warehouse, he was promoted to supervisor and became the boss of Little Den and 5 others. At that time, he was too focused on cultivation and martial arts and wasn't interested in other things. Ji Xian didn't even know that Little Den had registered him in the special promotion during the game's 5th year anniversary. He just celebrated his 20th birthday at that time when he surprisingly received a message from the consortium that he won a low-grade gaming helmet. Receiving that helmet marked the beginning of his career as a pro gamer. At this moment, Ji Xian remembered that Little Den had just entered the warehouse as a trainee, fresh from senior middle school. Ji Xian felt funny that he, a 3 years younger than Fan Den, actually called him Little Den. This time, he wanted to return the favor. If not for Little Den, he wouldn't know that playing the game would allow him to practice and improve his martial arts and cultivation. He knew that the guy only started playing the game 3 years after it's released. The same with the other 5. They only played the game because Little Den was continuously hyping them. Ji Xian accessed the Legend website and perused the details of Legend's promotion. He then registered all the guys and made the warehouse as a delivery address. After that, he checked the other details as he might have missed something important during the initial release of the game. Now, being reborn with memories intact, I know more about the future of the game. And I no longer had the disadvantage of starting late. I also remembered some important events, most known chest locations, special areas, as well as how to trigger a hidden quest. He thought while grinning in excitement. His grandfather left him with 1 million new Earth dollars, commonly known as NED, in the bank, so he planned to buy a top-quality gaming capsule. The currency of the world was unlike any from 100 years back. The new Earth dollars had replaced the old currencies of all countries. It was one of the directives issued by the World Council which rule the world in the background. This currency had been standardized since then. From stores, banks, communications services, schools, and any other transactions that required money used this new currency. Ji Xian recalled that 100 years ago, the blistering advancement of technology had resulted to a massive economic meltdown as the world wasn't ready for the rapid change. It had changed everything as chaos and anarchy were everywhere. The economy fell to an all-time low as businesses crumbled and inflation rate soared. It was then that country leaders assembled and formed the World Council, which replaced the United Nations. The Council then quelled everything and issued a series of directives to alleviate the situation, and finally recovered the plummeting economy. The world's economy throve and its momentum gradually soared as technology advanced leap and bound. This time, however, under the watchful eye of the Council. Unknown to ordinary people, the Council was led by cultivators. This was only known to Ji Xian during his conversation with the Cuo family patriarch after his engagement with Cuo Yun'er in the past. Even the consortium which was behind the creation of Legend was under the supervision of the Council. Although Ji Xian might win the prize, it was only a low-quality helmet. So, he wanted to buy a top-quality capsule instead. If he does win, he could sell the helmet at lower price or anonymously send it to Little Den. He didn't really mind the price because he could earn it back in the game. His only concern was that he had plans that requires a lot of money. Wait, what if I sell the fiery blood cultivation art to those old fogies of cultivation families? After pondering about it, he decided to sell the art through auction. He was familiar with the auction houses in Beijing, as he and Cuo Yun'er visited those places during their date. Doing business in those places were safe because most of them were managed by normal families as third-party and not cultivation family to avoid conflict of interest. Most transactions were online, except for the item as it needs to be handed to the auction houses personally. He could of course disguise himself while handing the item. Auction houses valued the privacy of their clients as top priority, because once the item owner's identity was exposed, his life would be in danger. If the incident was known to other clients, they would think hard before auctioning their items, or they might stop selling their items through auctions. That would cripple the income of the auction houses. The bank information of each client was also protected by several layers of encryption to prevent hackers from getting their hand on it. The moment someone other than the account holder or his authorized person attempted to access their account, the bank would automatically detect it. Unless the person was a super hacker who knew how to bypass these security protocols, anyone shouldn't even think of accessing these accounts. Ji Xian had to plan everything well. 3 days after the grand opening of consortium booth and sales branches, the game would be officially released to the public. So, he still had 6 days. He then accessed the website of the known antique store in Changsha City and ordered a blank old scroll, as well as a paper brush and animal blood ink. He searched for a drying lamp and ordered it as well. These things would be delivered the next day, so he decided to cultivate for 2 hours before sleeping. The next day, Ji Xian was expecting the items in the afternoon, so he went to his old school at around 8 a.m. to enroll before the next school year starts. Although he didn't need to go to school, he needed a cover. After all, he was still a 15-year-old youth, and he wanted to reconnect with his old classmates. He should extend his network if he wanted to set up a guild, hence, establishing a good relationship with his classmates would be a good start. Yes, he needed to set up a guild. He shouldn't play alone like when he was starting in the past. However, he should be ready before setting it up. He couldn't have a successful guild without a headquarter in the real world. He needed gaming helmets and system nutrient packs. In short, he needed money. A lot of it. Ji Xian also needed trustworthy assistants. Well, for now, he could only think of one person, his friend Little Den. Although he knew lots of players in his previous life, some of them started playing late. Other veteran players would already be with other guilds before his guild could gain a foothold. There were a lot of top players whom he wanted to recruit, but then again he needed money to sign them. Of course, he could take advantage when they were still low level and hadn't established a good name yet. Or at least he should form a good relationship with them. A while later, Ji Xian visited Uncle Tang's stall and had a sumptuous lunch. It was their favorite food resto in the past. He chatted with Uncle Tang for a while, asking him about his experience while traveling the world. The old man was like an expert orator as he vividly described his adventure. Uncle Tang was around 60 to 70 years of age. Standing at around 6 feet tall and had a muscular body despite his age, he didn't look like a chef at all. The old man continuously speaks while the young man listened like a disciple to a master. Ji Xian saw a different side of Uncle Tang while he listened. The old man was good-natured and approachable. He decided to drop by in the stall more often, and might learn a few cooking tricks while watching the old man. Jhexzone bade him farewell after an hour. It was already past 3 p.m. when he received the items he ordered the other night. He entered his house basement and inscribed the fiery blood cultivation art into an old scroll. After it was done, he reviewed the technique to make sure he didn't made a mistake in his inscription. Then, he turned the dryer lamp on and placed it above the scroll. It would take at least 12 hours to fully dry the ink, so he left the basement after setting everything. In the courtyard, Jhexzone immersed himself in training for 4 hours. His grandpa had taught him 2 external martial art when he was 10. The movement technique known as 8 Phoenix Shadow technique and a sword skill called Black Phoenix Fury Slash. Before his untimely death, he had practiced the movement technique 8 Phoenix Shadow steps to the peak of Grandmaster stage. Executing 8 steps, he could instantly move 25 meters away from his initial position, only leaving behind a shadowy afterimage. With his experience, he found it easier to practice the technique this time. Hence, after practicing for 4 hours, he was already at the peak of middle mastery stage. He had, on the other hand, practiced the sword skill to perfect completion mastery before he died. Using the last move of the technique, the Soaring Phoenix Slash, he could easily cut a steel of 5 centimeters thick. It was a terrifying slash, which started as the sword pointing downwards, then it would suddenly soar upwards at an 80 degrees angle, creating an impression of a soaring phoenix. After perfecting the technique, he had a glimpse of its true power. Years before, he had a guess that there was more to the technique. He didn't make a mistake in his assumption. With his comprehension, he combined all 9 techniques and created the 10th move utilizing an essence G to manifest a phoenix turning all across its path asunder. Before his death, he had advanced to the peak of 9th level of Qi condensation realm. However, this move required almost all of his essence G to execute. Hence, he could barely execute it. Finished with his training, he ate the takeout food he bought from Uncle Tang earlier. Afterwards, he cultivated for 2 hours before sleeping. He woke up at 5 a.m. the following morning and resumed his daily routine of the Feng family martial arts. 2 hours later, he traveled to Beijing. Jhexzone checked in the cheap hotel he booked earlier. After leaving the hotel, he searched for a secluded building to disguise himself as a middle-aged man before proceeding to the auction house. 2 armed guards stopped him as he arrived at the auction house entrance. The guards respectfully bowed to him in greetings. They knew that all clients of the auction house were either a VIP or those special people. They didn't know who those special people were, but one thing was for sure, they couldn't afford to offend any of those people. "Good day, sir," the guards greeted. Right. I'll be auctioning an item." Jhexzone nodded and replied in deep, gravelly voice. "This way, sir." One of the guards ushered him respectfully, while the other guard resumed his duty with sharp vigilance. After passing the restaurant acting as a cover to the real auction house, he was brought into a special room. It was brightly lit, and if one examined it closely, one would find several hidden CCTV camera and microphone. Of course, they were not hidden to spy on the client, but for security purposes. The auction house just used hidden camera and microphone, so as the clients wouldn't be distracted during the transaction. "Sir, please wait for a while, I will call our appraiser over." "Thank you," the guard explained to Jhexzone, who just nodded. After a minute or so, an old man wearing a tuxedo and a well-kept hair entered the room. He reminded Jhexzone of the butlers of large families. The old man nodded and smiled at Jhexzone, then greeted him formally. "Hello, sir, I'm sorry for the delay. I hope you don't mind. My name is Lu Du, you may call me Mr. Lu, or Senior Lu, or Brother Lu if you prefer. I'm one of the master appraisers of this auction house. How do I call you good sir? And may I see the item? The old man inquired straight to the point. Oh. Yes. Senior Lu. Just call me Mr. G. Right, here it is. Ji Xian replied hurriedly, handing the scroll to the old man. The old man unfurled the scroll. However, the moment he saw the first line of words stating a name of the fiery blood cultivation art, his heart skipped a beat and his eyes almost popped out of its socket. His mouth leapt agape as if he wanted to swallow the scroll. With trembling hands, he fully unfurled the scroll and stared at it in disbelief. Right in front of him was a low earth rank cultivation technique for fire-type spirit root cultivators. Senior Lu was not a cultivator, but as a master appraiser, any genuine technique couldn't escape his sharp eyes. He had appraised a lot of techniques in his life, most of them were low rank. He would at times met a high rank one, and only saw top mortal rank techniques thrice. However, he had never seen an earth rank technique. Although some of his colleagues had seen and dealt with a few, he didn't. Not even once. Hence, it was truly understandable for him to be shocked. Ji Xian just sat in there, calmly waiting for the man to recover from his shock. He had already anticipated it. The first time he heard that the highest cultivation technique on Earth now was a low Earth rank technique, he was in disbelief as well, just like the old man in front of him. If his cultivation wasn't stable, the shock might have disturbed his Tao heart, and he wouldn't be able to maintain his calm demeanor in front of the patriarch of Cuo family. After a while, the old man recovered from shock. He caressed his beard and resumed his calmness. Then, he looked at Ji Xian with a smile. End of chapter 2.